I really enjoy is to compare leaders with working parents because I think a lot of the qualities that parents have are very essential for being a people manager. In the corporate, to push the trigger is much more easier. It's easier to let go of someone and bring someone else. But if I, as a people manager, hasn't changed, attract the same type of employee to my team again and again.
Today in the studio, we have Nakhli Khoury, who is joining us all the way from Switzerland, talking to us about how to lead from the heart.
Most of the time, we operate on an autopilot. We do the same things that we did the day before, the same thoughts, the same behavior. The only meaningful change begins when we change from the inside, when we are aware that there's something in us that needs to change first. I call it awakening coaching. I try to empower people about what they do, to remind them who they are, to discover themselves, and eventually to thrive instead of battling to survive all the time.
Welcome to Breaking the Chain, brought to you by Impel Talent. I'm Nathaniel Chapman.
And I'm Terentia Browne. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Breaking the Chain. Today in the studio we have Nakhli Khoury, who is joining us all the way from Switzerland, talking to us about how to lead from the heart. So we're really excited to have you here, Nakhli, and really welcome to the episode today.
Thank you so much, Terentia, for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Perfect. I think when we were prepping for the episode, we ended up talking so much. I really enjoyed our conversation and I was like, oh, we should have had record on. So now we're here. So I'd love that we're bringing the community in on this conversation. So I think before we get started on the topic, I'd love for you to just maybe share a little bit of your story, a little bit of your career journey, and what's led you to this point to really talk about this topic around having this heart for leadership.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm a corporate employee. I've been working in the corporate for almost more than 2 decades now. And during my career, I've been through a number of transitions, transformation. I relocated to a new country. I changed jobs, changed companies. I resigned from roles. I was let go from roles. So in a way, I've experienced all aspects of being an employee. In addition to that, in the last 4 years, I also started to coach other colleagues in my organization, and I fell in love in the topic of coaching and mentoring. So I find it as a privilege to join people during their transition period to share, my insights and to also help them navigate through their own journey. I call it awakening coaching, and what I do, I try to empower people about what they do, to remind them who they are, to make them connect with things that they are really passionate about, to rediscover themselves, and eventually to thrive instead of, battling to survive all the time.
Oh, I love that. We talk about the VUCA world we're living in, right? And when we teaching leaders about this, when we present this VUCA world, some people have never heard about the term, number one, which is also feels very surprising to me, but a lot of people haven't heard of the term. But we also tell them, we teaching you this because we want you to learn tools to thrive and not just survive. Because I think I think every day it feels like we're just trying to keep our head above water, but there must be better ways of doing things, right? And I think it all comes back to that self and understanding what's happening in me and in my mind, and then what tools do I have in my hand to help me and to navigate.
Definitely. And I think that's really interesting point because most of us, most of the time, we operate on an autopilot, right? We do the same things that we did the day before, the same thoughts, the same behavior, and the same reactions during the day. And unfortunately, in order to trigger a significant change, in most cases, there's something external happening to us. Either we have health issues, we lose our job, we separate from a partner, and these experiences send us to a self-reflection. And then in that moment, we have this moment to pause and think and see, okay, what do I actually really want? Or why was I doing or acting in a certain way? Should I change something? So this is where it all begins usually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for me, I just wanted to expose what this means, the heart of leadership, and really talking through how can we expand that? How can we give language to it? I think for me, it's about understanding myself first as a leader and then being able to connect with the people around us. So what would you say is the why behind understanding this heart for leading?
So I think one practical advice that I can share that I use it myself and it has been a game changer for me is to change my perspective on how do I judge things. What do I mean by that is I consider every person that I meet another version of myself. And before I judge their behavior or their our interaction, I try to ask myself, what does this version of myself trying to teach me, or what am I supposed to see in this version of myself? And it takes away the negative approach and it makes me more try to understand the situation and try to understand, okay, what is my lesson here? And I can maybe share an example. So sometimes we are in a room or in any gathering and a person walks in, he or she, and we automatically get triggered by them, right? There's something in the way they enter, they speak, they behave makes us triggered. So I start to ask myself, why is that? And for example, it could be that a certain person came very casual, he was very confident, and he wasn't respecting any rules. Something that I find maybe weird or not nice, but it's actually showing me that I am not comfortable being comfortable, right? That maybe I am always following the rules or have difficulty to challenge authority, and he was showing me a different way to do that. So once I deal with the situation from this perspective, I don't judge him as a person, but I see him more as a teacher reflecting, some point that I need to work on, internally. And this goes across so many different interactions that we have with our colleagues at work and different meetings, different scenarios. So that's one point.
Amazing. I think for me, the first point when we talk about leadership, leading from the heart, is also understanding this emotional intelligence, which is, I think, what a lot you were talking about, the self-awareness, understanding yourself so that you can understand others. Why is it important for us to have that perspective of self and then of others when it comes to leading?
That's really one of the best questions, because if we are not able to change from the inside internally, our external environment will remain the same. Meaning, if I'm not happy at my job, and I decide to change and move to another team or another company, it's a matter of time that I attract the same environment. If I didn't have supportive boss, then I would probably have again a manager that is not supportive, or and so on. Also in a personal life, some people we leave our partner and we invite the same type of partner again, because no matter how much we try to change our external environment, the only meaningful change begins when we change from the inside, when we are aware that there's something in us that needs to change first in order to attract different scenarios, different partners, different managers, and so on.
Absolutely. So, when we talk about knowing yourself, where do you start? How do you even start this process? Because you've said you are an awakening coach, right? How would you approach a situation like that? Somebody comes to you and they say, Nakhli, I'm stuck. I don't know. I feel like I don't know myself. I don't know the people around me. I don't feel like I'm leading well because of that. How do you help someone on that journey?
So there's normally two things. There's internal process and external process. Maybe the external process is easier to explain. So, and I think maybe one of our favorite speakers, Simon Sinek, once mentioned that in one of his interviews. You simply ask your friends or people that you trust, why are you my friend? Or what's in me that you value, or how do you see me? And this is a very valuable exercise, because sometimes we are so used to the stories that we have in our own heads about ourselves that we don't see ourselves like others see us, or there are some blind spots that we don't notice about ourselves, and we sometimes forget about it, but others actually value it, and this is why they have the relationship with us, because they cherish certain qualities that sometimes we forget. So I do encourage people to have this exercise, to reach out to one, two, three people that they feel comfortable with, connected with, they have been working with, and ask them honestly, what is their feedback about them? What is it that makes them happy? What is it, that makes annoy them? And it's a very nice exercise. People might be surprised how much they might learn about themselves. And the internal process is simply, as you know, in coaching, the idea is, every person know what's best for them, and all the information it's within us. So I try to guide, I don't like to call them clients, maybe partners, to guide them just to take this moment and reflect, to meditate. And it doesn't have to be meditation, but to really pause and think, what is it that they are passionate about? What are the things that they enjoy doing? Could be like a childhood dream, it could be something that they consider as a hobby. And again, it's try to go out of the daily routine and the daily autopilot mechanism that we live in, and to try to connect the things that really give us joy or happiness and that we feel passionate about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, some of the clients that we started Journey with. The first module is called Who Am I? This module is actually quite a confronting module because there's so many questions that people have never asked themselves.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be the benefit of walking the journey with a coach like yourself or like me, to be able to, self-reflect? Because I feel it is a skill and it's not so easy to just sit, say maybe in front of the beach or in a quiet place and just start asking yourself questions, because we also don't know what type of questions to ask, those styles of questions. So what would you say would be the benefit to actually reach out, make yourself vulnerable, and ask for that help, ask for that support?
I think that's really interesting question, because in a way, what is actually the added value that we as coaches provide, right? From my conversations, there are some passive advantages and also active. And what I mean by passive, many feedback that I get is that people just want someone to really listen to them. So even if they are talking and I'm simply listening and acknowledging what they say, the fact that they feel they can speak in a safe environment, share their thoughts, already this exercise gives them additional insights. Because most of the time, we only have thoughts. We don't even hear our thoughts. And suddenly, when you speak it, it sounds differently. It triggers some ideas. So only this aspect is valuable, and it doesn't have to be with coach. It could be with any other person. But I think the added value of coaches is their ability to listen and to reflect back with powerful questions that trigger even deeper reflection and challenge them to go deeper with their questions and search and self-discovery. And we do this in a very gentle way, not to be intimidating, but only to push them a little bit further. I always give an example that we don't give them any new information. We just clear all the leaves and the noise from the pathway. And then suddenly the road is much more clear, right? It has always been there. For some reason, they have so many noise around it that they didn't see it anymore.
So I think if we had to just summarize a little bit on this point we are talking about, is around shifting our perspective. So shifting how we see ourselves, holding the mirror up, even just asking the people around you to hold the mirror up, because everyone is reflecting how you are showing up. They are experiencing how you are showing up. So I think that first point is really around taking that first step to acknowledge that something needs to shift, something needs to change if you want to now lead differently. You want to lead from the heart and not just feel like I'm managing these people around, is what I'm hearing. Great. I think another point that you raised and which I really loved was around breaking recurring patterns. So maybe can you expand on that a little bit, and what's the impact of us repeating patterns and what's the impact of us breaking patterns?
I think I was attended one time a session with Joe Dispenza, and he talks about it a lot. Like every day we have between 60 and 70 thoughts. 80 or 90% of them are the same thoughts from the day before. Most of our thoughts are either fears from the future or regrets from the past. And we rarely live in the present moment. So even if every single moment we either thinking, what should I do next? Or what I should have done before. And the way he explained it, that we send our energy. So what we are actually doing, we are giving away our energy for change. And instead of investing and being present in the moment, we are expanding and wasting our energy to the future or to the past. So once we are fully present in the moment and we are able to see ourselves in the present moment, we are able to take meaningful actions that can create change. This is the moment where you create new habits, where you can build new habits and also be consistent with it.
So it's around also, again, doing that self-reflection. What is serving you and what's not serving you? What's serving people and what's not serving people? But you can only get that from feedback, right? Knowing what's working, what's not working. How can leaders ask for constructive feedback or even positive feedback, that they know what they're doing well and what they are not doing so well? Because I find a lot of the leaders we are coaching are really struggling with this piece of how to ask for the feedback from the people around them.
Well, for me, leaders, like any other employee, they can ask, their managers or their team members. And it's an exercise that, in a way, requires to be humble and to be with an open heart and able to receive a feedback that is really meant to make you aware or identify some certain area that you were not seeing or giving enough attention. One thing I really enjoy is to compare leaders with working parents, because I think a lot of the qualities that parents have are very essential for being a people manager. What I mean by that, as parents, sometimes you struggle with your kids, right? They are not behaving as you wanted, or they are not accepting your authority, or they're challenging your authority. We rarely think, oh, I should replace them or fire them and get another one, right? We try to deal with it. We listen, we lean in, we stay. But for some reason in the corporate, to push the trigger is much more easier. It's easier to, let go of someone and bring someone else. It's the same thing. If I, as a people manager, hasn't changed, I will probably attract the same type of employee to my team again and again, because I need to be the version of myself that doesn't have this interaction or this negativity. So again, it's a change of perspectives. It's not to blame the team member, but to ask myself, what version of myself can be actually benefit to my team, or how can I be, the version that my team deserves.
Hi guys, hope you're enjoying the episode. Just a quick announcement. We're launching Impel Connect, our new private community for ambitious professionals and forward-thinking organizations. It's a space to learn, share, and grow with curated content, peer learning, leadership development, and real human connection. And we're giving early access to just 100 people and listeners in our network. Founding members will get a free month's entry, exclusive content, onboarding support, and a say in shaping the actual platform, and special perks like discounted membership and invite-only events. If you want in, join the waiting list at impeltalent.com/connect. Once the 100 spots are gone, they're gone. And you'll actually get in early, getting free early access to the beta form of the platform, while also getting access to these exclusive benefits. So what are you waiting for? Go onto our website, check out more information, and I'll see you on the platform in January.
So it starts with that awareness. So the self-awareness is key, but also the social awareness is also key. Like, who is around me? Who do I need around me? Who should be on the team? What skills are we looking for? What skills do we need? So constantly asking yourself the question, but also taking into account the evolution of yourself, but also the evolution of the team. I think that's a powerful tool to have as leaders. So I think that's a great way of how can we break the pattern. We got to first know what the pattern is before we can understand what are we wanting to break, right? We don't want to also break what's working. So I think that's where understanding the positives makes a big difference, because then you as a leader, you have an understanding what's working, what are the people really valuing from me that I need to do more of because they need this from me. And I always say to all our clients, I wish we all had the superpower of mind reading, especially as leaders. But we don't. So we need to be curious and we need to ask these questions to the people around us.
Yeah.
So good. So how do leaders understand the value that they can bring to the team, to the organization, even to the individual? So maybe from this individual to the team to the organization. How can they discover or uncover what that value is?
I think this reminds me to the title of the podcast, right? Breaking the chain. Because when I first heard it, it reminded me of breaking the chain of the generational trauma or changing something. Unfortunately, in the last few years in the corporate world, we've seen a lot of major restructuring and people losing their job for different reasons. AI and company have different strategies and so on. What we see in most cases that the first direction is to reduce cost and to save money or to maintain the cash flow. So it's always about the cash flow. And I can give you one example, or basically two examples. Some time ago, Facebook mentioned that, they are reducing their headcount by 5% of low performers. So if I was an employee in the company, like the first question I will ask myself, am I a low performer?
Yes, not.
It's not. Is Terentia a low performer? Because if she I don't want to be close to her, right? So this type of decisions create energy of fear in the organization. Fear creates separation, and separation is never optimal for any growth. So this is one way that decisions from the management thinking that they are saving the company could work in the short term because, they are focusing in the short term on how can we cut costs. But what they are actually doing, they are sending very negative message to the employee that you are basically a burden at some point and you will not hesitate, to take harsh decision. And then it's a question like, do I want to be in this organization? Can I attract talent in the future, knowing that this is how I act? And in the other side, there was an example, I think maybe one of very few, but Southwestern company during the COVID period, that they also struggled financially. But the CEO took a different approach. He said, I'm not letting go anyone. As a CEO, I am taking a significant cut in my salary, I think between 70 and 80%. And also all other employees, I think around 20 or 30%. But he wanted to keep everyone employed. So the message was, if I was an employee, I would say, the company is trying to do everything in its power to keep my career. And then what I feel is like, I will do everything in my power to make this plan work, right? So you create different type of interaction, different type of energy, of collaboration, of unity in the organization. So it's like an example of two companies struggling financially and sending different energy across the organization. So which one do you think has more, chance of attracting future talents or even sustaining their business in the long? So these kind of things that I try to encourage managers don't always follow the cash flow, but also follow the energy flow or see, what type of organization you are creating.
So again, it's coming back to that people-centered leadership, understanding the human assets. How are we protecting them? What are decisions we are making to motivate them, to inspire them, and not to instill fear? Because that fear is what's driving the loss of efficiency and loss of productivity. Because if the mind is or being wrapped in that fear cycle, they actually don't have space and capacity to innovate, to think out of the box, to come up with different ideas, to feel confident to try new ideas as well.
You will be, they call it quiet quitting, right? So you will do the minimum expected, but you will not take the extra mile. You will not be proactive. You will just be reactive of what's happening.
Yeah. But if somebody were to challenge you, Nakhli, the costs are important, the bottom line's important because that's what's keeping the company open. It also takes a lot more time and effort. That's what, people say, to think about, what everybody needs, and all of these things feel very overwhelming. What would you say to someone who's challenging that way of thinking?
I mean, challenging is always good. I mean, we are not saying that what is being done is wrong and it should be fully excluded, right? But we are just saying, take a little bit of a pause and try to consider maybe there is different ways. Maybe you can actually have a better decision for the long term and try to focus on the human side. We often hear, in companies that the most valuable resource is our employees. But then how come it's the first resource that is being let go? So, how do you want employees to feel this way going forward? So I respect the challenge, but I think it's also important to have this additional perspective. In some cases, there's also other solutions. Maybe requires more thought or more preparation, but I think that's the right message that you send to the organization and future employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's the employees that are still there, that are staying behind. They want to see also, if you have let go of people, how have you treated them when you were letting them go as well? Because that also dictates how they will show up and how they will feel
Yeah.
going forward. So it's not only about the people that are left, but it's actually more important about how you're treating those people because of the people that are staying, that are still there. And I think sometimes we may forget that and say, okay, those people are gone now. Let's, continue business as usual. But it's not, because you've probably maybe have lost trust along the way because of the way you've treated those people and how you've spoken to them and how you've handled the exit. And there's so many things. So it comes back to this word trust. Trust is a big thing.
Thank you so much for joining us for our latest episode of Breaking the Chain. If you'd like to see more episodes, you can check us out online at www.impeltalent.com/podcast. And if you'd like to perhaps put a question into us or be featured on one of our next episodes, you can email us at info@impeltalent.com. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next week.